Now, last night, F1 75 presented 10 new F1 liveries for the 2025 season. And to be fair, side note, the event was excellent. I really genuinely had low expectations. I thought there'd be a massive load of PR waffle. And actually, it was a very fun event. Good music, good interviews, good presentation of the teams, and also great presenting from Jack Whitehall. So for me, probably an 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10. I want to hear your thoughts down below, but either way, great fun. I gave my thoughts on X or Twitter. If you want to follow me over there, then link down below, go check it out. Either way, we're going to jump into a tier list and give you guys my ranking of the 10 liveries for the brand new 2025 F1 season. Now in this video, we're going to follow the exact same order as the cars got revealed last night. So we're going to start out with the Sauber and work our way up. Now we begin talking about this car, which I think actually is one of my favorites of the new season. Last year's kick grew on me throughout the year, but I was never quite a fan of the design. I thought it was a little bit clunky, and for what they could have done, I thought they did a pretty poor job of it. Now for this one, they've gone much more simple. Essentially, from the front, the car's green, from the back, it's black, and then from the side, it's kind of a 50-50 split. Now, a few things to kind of point out is the difference in wheel covers. So the back one is completely, uncolored. The front, they've kept last year's one, so again, kind of adding to that split color theme. I really like it. It's so simple, but so effective, and it's a much cleaner paint job than last year. So for me personally, this one is a big thumbs up. Now before we rank it, my only two gripes or issues with this one is the stake logos on the halo and the nose. Why not just put those in black like the rest of the sponsors on the green background? And then the number is kind of hidden there between the suspension arms and the pitot tube. Why not just move it down here to this blank space, which would be a lot more visible? Now with that in mind, we're going to start out with placing the Sauber. I'm going to basically put each car where I think it goes, and then at the end we'll sort of rearrange or tweak a few based on my thoughts and opinions. So for now, the Sauber I quite like. I'm going to leave in quality for now, and we can adjust and reshuffle as we go along. But for me, the Sauber, job well done. So now we go to Williams, and a couple of days ago they had a shakedown where they said their shakedown livery was not going to be their official one, but to be fair, it really isn't far off. Now a quick shout out to them, of course, new title sponsor, which really does fill out the car, and having a title sponsor now with the rest of the sponsors, Santander joining of course with signs, suddenly they have a lot going on and their car looks very full in a good way. Anyway, let's talk about the car. Generally, not much of a change, a slight revision on last year's car. I actually quite like the Williams. There's a lot of details that I really enjoy, like for example, the white outline on the front wing all the way around, and also on the nose is a very nice, subtle touch. Now from the side view, I actually quite like it. It's very clean and very simple and effective. Quite a lot going on with the sponsors, but I'd say it doesn't look too busy or too overcrowded. They've kept the Duracell and of course Atlassian now taking up a big part of the car. They seem to have a bit of a gradient going on. I can't tell if it's the lighting or not, but it seems to be a darker front blue end with a lighter blue on the back end, which matches up very nicely with the rear wing with the Kraken sponsorship, so it doesn't really look out of place anymore. And you can see here from the back end view what I mean. So the blue kind of starts darker, goes lighter, and matches the Kraken on the rear end, because last year that looked a little bit out of place. So it's decent for now. That might change. It could go into quality, but I'm going to say decent. Also, a little side note, the lack of carbon fiber this year is a very big plus. All the cars have a bit more paint and color on them, so big shout out to the teams for that. So let's get to it. V-CARB. Oh my goodness me, they've done it. They've actually brought back the white Red Bull livery from the Turkish Grand Prix 4 years ago. Now there's a few changes and a few tweaks in this one which the Red Bull from back then didn't have. Like for example, the yellow nose, also the white outboard end plates. But generally, very, very nice. They've done some detail here on the engine cover, adding some actual balls, in a pattern. There's a few things I don't like about it, which, isn't quite a 10 for me, which is, for example, they've got like some blue outlines here, or edges on the side. These winglets here, the little winglet here, it's really like blue. And the one here on the halo, I'm not quite sure. They're trying to put the navy blue in certain places to make it look like a V-CARB and not a Red Bull, but it doesn't quite work for me. You know, it's a pointless detail really. Now for me, I'm going to be honest, for now, and I think it's going to stay like this for the rest of the video, this is going into winner. However, will there be more winners? Is there another contender? Will I shuffle things around? Now then, this livery got leaked a few days back in a shakedown at Silverstone, but Haas have brought a very different looking car compared to last year. I'd say predominantly white compared to black, and they've done an excellent job with it. They have kept the carbon, which, you know, is a shame, but to be fair, the white they've put on the car and the little red hints really transform this livery, and this is for me the best livery Haas have ever made. Personally, I'm a big fan of the new nose, where they've basically painted the entire, you know, structure rather than leaving it kind of blacked out. They've actually painted the whole thing white, and the nose looks quite pointy, sharp and aggressive, which I really do enjoy. They've got a few more sponsors this year, which also does always help make a livery look a bit more complete and a bit more professional. Oh, this is really difficult already, because you're gonna see a theme here, but the white cars seem to have done it for me this year. I'm gonna leave it in the back end of winner. I don't know, this is gonna be tricky. Now we get to the first of the Marmite cars, and I say that because this has split opinion. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I quite like it. It's growing on me quite a bit. Now, let's get a few things straight. It's not perfect. I don't think blue and pink really work, unfortunately. However, first off, let's give some props. This is a massive upgrade over last year's carbon monstrosity, which never looked good at any point. This is a lot sexier, a lot nicer, way more paint, and crucially, the car has that French Alpine bleu back on it, that metallic 2021 blue back on the car. The sponsor arrangement is very nice. I love every single one of these. Any on the engine cover is perfect. It looks really good, and I like what they've done with it, because basically from the side it's basically a blue car, and then from the front it's pink. Now I know this view, this angle in particular, has split opinion a little bit online, but I don't mind it. I think it's quite creative. Again, it's a trend that teams have done for a couple of years now, basically having, you know, from the front the car looks one color, from the side it's another. Back in the day when it was Renault, from the front it looked yellow, from the side it looked black. Now for me, this one, I'm still going to be fair. I don't think ultimately pink and blue work, so I'm going to go decent behind the Williams for the time being. And that's kind of going to conclude the second half of the table, and now we're going to get into the top half. So this is when things start to go downhill, and there's a trend which you might pick up on, but Aston Martin, I'm not feeling it. It's not working for me. I think it's a massive downgrade. I thought their, 2023 car was their best looking car ever. Last year took a slight step back with the kind of black around the Aramco on the side pod cutouts, and this year they've gone all in, basically just leaving the side pod carbon. I'm not liking it. I'm not feeling it. I'm not liking how they've cut back on the lime strip underneath the engine cover, but because of the carbon, like Mercedes last year, they've gotten rid of it. They've added it back on further up on the kind of lower half of the engine cover, but the rear wing, they did this last year, which is not new, but I prefer when the Aramco's on the back end of the rear wing, not the front end, because basically what's happening here, you've got a lot of different colours going on. You've got the kind of lime green Aramco with the sky blue. You've got the white now from Madden. You've got the black of the Aramco. You've got the, of course, British Racing Green. You've got the lime strips. You've got the blue and the red of Valvoline. There's a lot going on, and they haven't done a good job. They have made the halo and the mirrors British Racing Green this year, which is a bit more consistent with the rest of the car, but generally, I really am not liking it much at all. Last night, I got told I was rage baiting, but I'm being serious. I'm not feeling it at all. I think it looks messy and clunky. I'm going to flash up on screen now, and I'm going to kind of alternate them so you can see the difference. A bit of a mock-up I did last night, basically having the Aramco back on the green, the Boss with black, and it automatically brings the car together, having the lime strip underneath all the way through to the back end like it used to be, and making the Madden inverted, so black background, white text. If they can't accept that, then fair play, but subtle adjustment, and I think it looks 10 times better. Either way, I'm not liking it. Now for me, genuinely, I'm going to put the Aston Martin in L. I don't like it at all. There's no redeeming quality for me about this car, and I think it could stay there. Now, it's time for the Silver Arrows, Mercedes, and I want to give a shout out to Tomo for this one. I was watching his live stream last night, and there's one thing that really stood out to him, to me, to everyone, is of course the lack of Ineos, which has been, a key part of the car with the red for a couple of years now. It's actually moved to the inside of the front wing on a black background. So they used to have it on the roll hoop. This year they've left it exposed, essentially no sponsor and no red. They've left it silver, which to me looks very barren. It looks weird. Like if you're going to have nothing on it, they should have just painted it black. It's interesting how there was no official pictures released yesterday during the event from Merc of their car, even just the 2024 chassis with their 25 livery. Tomo was hinting at maybe there was a last minute sponsorship kerfuffle, something went wrong, and they couldn't quite prepare the livery properly because it looks a bit off. Generally, between that side pod, which I've never really liked, and the roll hoop being left barren, to me it feels a little bit unfinished, not in a good way. Last year, the turquoise, which ran along the nose and all that, was connected to the silver, which I much preferred. I think it looks a little bit clunky with the black splitting up as well. So for me, Merc last year was actually near quality, but I'm going to put this in meh. I'm not really liking it. Now that's going to bring us nicely onto Red Bull. Now actually, I've always liked the Red Bull livery, and it's never going to change because it's essentially iconic. There's certain liveries throughout time which don't change much, and Red Bull have their identity. A big thing this year is their main crypto sponsor, Bybit, which was on the front wing and the rear wing and on the side of the nose, has gone, and they've had to rearrange sponsors. Now, I love the Red Bull on the front wing. They've replaced Bybit with Gate.io, which is on the rear wing. I don't quite like it. I think it looks a little bit clunky. If they had had Honda or Red Bull on the rear wing, this is a potential all-time Red Bull livery, like the 2021 car. Like, genuinely, it's up there. But let's get the side view up. Now, granted, we've only got pictures kind of at a side angle, so we can't do much about that, but there's subtle things here which I quite like. And sponsor changes. Of course, Checo's gone, so a lot of his sponsors are gone and they've had to rearrange. Now the rear wing, all black, looks pretty nice, pretty clean. The car staying as is. One password here, kind of replacing Bybit, and because it's a much narrower, smaller sponsor, looks a lot more fitting with the kind of red stripe that runs alongside. Now, because we've seen it a million times and there's not a ton of change, I'm going to put it in decent. It's a Red Bull. It's never going to be bad. It's never going to be a winner. It's a decent looking car. So now we get to it. Ferrari, my favourite team. I don't have a favourite driver, but I've always loved Ferrari. Everybody's a Ferrari fan, even if they say they don't support a team or don't have a driver. Now, this is really tricky for me to judge. Having small logos on a wide, short space doesn't work. It's the wrong fit. So the HP on the rear wing and the front wing doesn't really work. The HP is really high up. Now, logically, you'd have it at mid-high, but because the car has these kind of engine shoulders on the engine cover, the logo would look very squashed up and very, out of place. So they've put themselves in an awkward position here because basically they've got a lot of white space underneath with nothing on it, and it looks a bit awkward. Other than that, they've gone for a darker red, but generally a sponsor arrangement pretty decent. If it were up to me, the HP would have gone on the side pod here and got rid of the Saver and Peroni. Also on the rear wing, you could have put it on there entirely, inside part of the front wing, but definitely a downgrade on last year's car. Now, we've seen the car on track this morning. It's had a shakedown. You can see now in the light of day, actually, I prefer it on track to the renders. Few things I noticed: the rear wing's actually black, which it doesn't really show that well in the renders, and what I would have done to kind of keep the car consistent is make the front wing end plates on the outside black as well to follow this trend. Now there is one more thing, and the car has IBM on the rear wing in blue. Now I'm going to assume it's the same tone blue as the HP, but either way, it's a bit more going on with the car. I don't hate it, I don't love it. It works with the HP, but it's arguably even more blue on the car, which it is what it is. It reminds me of the McLaren years ago when they had the red rear wing with Husky chocolate. But yeah, where would I put it? I'm gonna say I'm going to put it in decent, and you know, if decent does get a bit busy, we're going to sort that out in a bit, but for now it's going to be there. I'm going to say behind the Red Bull, maybe ahead. I've got to decide, but for now that's our order. We've got one more car to go. So the McLaren has been revealed, and they have a slight revision of the sponsors, but the livery is essentially exactly the same. Now, Allwyn is a new sponsor on the car, and they've done a good job of hiding it here on the renders, but you look at the mirrors and they're actually turquoise, kind of off turquoise blue, which is another colour. The DP World also is like a dark purplish blue as well, so they have got a few different colour palettes going on, but they've hidden it relatively well. But that being said, the livery is exactly the same. Now, I quite liked last year's livery. I think it could be slightly improved, but generally it's not too bad. Now, from the front angle, they've added MasterCard, a bit like on the back end of last season, so on the front wing and also on the halo. Now, one thing I don't quite get is, a bit like with the Sauber, they left a blank space here and the number's really high up. Why not put the number there so it's a bit more visible further down? Again, they've kind of hidden the mirrors here pretty well, but you can see they're kind of turquoise blue, and that's really the only change. Now, for some reason, I don't know if it's the lighting or what, but it isn't quite hitting me. The orange seems a little bit more washed out than last year's. I'm going to put it in decent on the back end. And now this is our final order, so let's sort out a final summary. So I'm going to put the Williams in the back end of quality. I'm tempted to put the Alpine to quality. Pink and blue don't work, but I think they've done a really good job with it, and I quite like it. It's growing on me a bit, but it feels like a crime putting pink and blue into quality. I'm going to move the McLaren into meh. I'm not feeling it as much. I don't know why. Maybe it's the camera angles or the renders, but the orange looks really washed out. Who wins out of these two? It's interesting because I think I prefer the V-CARB to the Haas. However, I couldn't really pick up any issues with the Haas livery. I think it's their best ever one. Whereas I could pick up faults on the V-CARB. I'm going to move the Haas down to quality. I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to give it to the V-CARB on the basis that they've done something very different. And, you know, in an era where we've had a lot of black cars, carbon fibre, Haas has a bit of carbon fibre on their car still. They've gone for the all-white, and they've done a good job with it. So I think that's going to be my final order. I want to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. I'll leave a link to my tier list, this one right here, down below, so give it a shot. And I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below and your ranking. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there any hot takes or things that I've done outrageously wrong? I want to hear down below. In the meantime, guys, cheers for watching. Like the video, subscribe, and hopefully the cars look better on track. And bear in mind, all these cars are on 2024 last season chassis, so they might look slightly better on a revised actual 2025 chassis when we see them in pre-season testing. So yeah, guys, that's where I'm going to leave it. Hopefully you enjoyed. As always, a massive shout out to my channel members for supporting all the content that I make. Also, check out the 2 videos on screen for more content from myself. And yeah, guys, cheers for watching, and I'll see you soon.